Hi, welcome to part 2 of the video of Elephant and I. And today I'm going to take you through color recap, especially for choosing colors for the elephant, how to piece these 7 sections together. So stay tuned and we'll get right on it. So to recap color, I touched upon it a little bit in the first video, but the elephant is a more complicated piece than the girl. So here's our girl that we pieced in the last video. And what I want to talk to you about is how she relates to the elephant. I choose at least 30 colors, maybe even 40, to do all of the pieces in the elephant. And there are 7 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And they do reflect the colors that are happening in the girl. Remember I talked about connecting visually color from her hand to the trunk of the elephant? Well, I did that. And then I repeated colors throughout her, like the oranges and the peaches and this hot teal, throughout the whole elephant. How did I pick my colors? I love using Joen Wolfrom's tool. It's great. And even though these are not all laid out like a rainbow, I do use this when I'm choosing color. And I prefer, this side is something that tells you about the tertiary and analogous colors. I tend to use this side more. So say you're at a fabric store or you've just bought a lot of different colors. Here you are, and this is your array of color. So with the color tool, I can go through the greens, and here's soft, pale tints to strong hues, and then we even get into tones down here. Into the blues, we come through the really kind of muddy blues and grays, into the brighter teals, into some tints. And so just choose colors. Remember I told you like a dark, a medium, and a light of each color that you want to choose. And choose ones that you like. So here was my final selection of color. This is what I end up choosing, plus some Kona cottons that aren't in this selection. But there's my final choice of color. And remember, this is what I first use as an inspiration. So I'm using this print throughout the elephant. And I've put it in various places, just 4. And then I've repeated here. It's good to repeat color. I've also repeated this little print from her leg into the elephant's leg. I started with the trunk, and then I worked into the ear, into the front belly, the back legs, and the front legs. So I didn't know exactly what color was going to go where when. I just started with the trunk. You don't have to know all the answers to everything behind the trunk. Start with something you like, add light colors together, throw in a pop of color. I like brown. I tell everyone to put brown in their pieces at some point. One of the key things with the back here, and it will tell you on the instructions, is right here. Number 2 and 4 need to match. And number 3 and 5 need to match. So don't forget that, because when you piece it together, right here you seam that, this brown defines the ear of the elephant. So you want these 2 colors to match and these 2 colors to match. That's the only place in the entire assembly of the elephant where you're matching colors. The other point I like to let you know about is the back front leg. Here the colors are darker. It's because I want to give the illusion that they're in a shadow. So when you piece it together, this leg will be in the front, this is in the back, that gets pieced to this gets pieced to the middle, and then the back legs go on. The other reason I designed it this way is that you won't be able to mess up what are the back legs and what are the front legs, because there's 3 units. So the one that is together is the back legs, and these 2 are the front legs. Next, I'm going to show you how I sewed this back together. The tricky part of the base of the elephant is all these points, but I've designed it so you don't have all the points coming into one place. And I'm going to show you that to you right now, so hold on and I'm going to get my sewing machine out. For the pattern piece, I am going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're going to go through and troubleshoot as I go, but just to give you a heads up, these points on purpose are not designed to all come together because we don't want to have a seam allowance that is this thick. So that's why you've got these different points happening in different parts of the pattern. Don't fret if you don't stitch exactly along the line. One of the really nice things about this paper piecing pattern in Elephant and I is that you can go off the line, or you can, if you run out of fabric, there's little maneuvers that you can do that are not going to make or break the pattern. So note here, I'm not going to bring this thread through. I'm going to stop it right after it gets over the line. That's an important part about when all of these points are coming together. You're doing a little bit more precision paper piecing, because if you go over into all these colors, you're going to have to tear it out just to cut it, because we're going to end up clipping the excess fabric that's coming over there after. You'll see, it'll become more clear as I get going. I'm going to trim it along the edge here. So I trim as I go when I'm doing these really snarky little points. And that's just to get rid of bulk. That's all we're doing, is getting rid of bulk. So number 5, we're going to trim back a little bit more right here. So this thread right here is catching a little bit. So number 5 color is going to come in here and it's going to clean up this area. So I am going to trim this back right here. So here's our number 5 fabric. And you want to make sure when you do right sides together that the tail is covering all of that right there. See how I've lined that up? So this piece of fabric is covering from the top of the abdomen to the centerpiece where it's going to be sewn together. Okay, so here's an example. So my piece is not, it's a little too narrow. So see how I'm not going to have a seam allowance right there? So I'm just going to fold it back to there. I'm adjusting that line just a hair so that we don't have to redo that piece. Last piece is the green, and that goes back to the front again, and that's going to clean up this whole edge right here. So I'm going to fold this back. So here I have to rip the paper a little bit to see how I'm losing a bits of the paper. That's going to happen. You're going to get all this stuff happening in here, and you have to pull the paper out, rip it a little bit, and create your line. Cut your fabric. Start losing where I put all my tools. Right there. You can even cut all the way across. Have a waste paper tin handy, so you just put everything in there. This is a much bigger piece than I need. I'm not even going to cut it down yet. I'll cut it down after. And then we're going to go straight from here. And you got to go slow down when you get to that big lump, because there's still a lump. So, see, we've mitigated all of those tiny, tiny seams. It's not that bad. I'm going to cut it along with using my eye along the dotted line here. That's going to be part of the seam allowance when you're adding the middle body or the back body to the front body. And here, get there. And then we can cut right along this line here. And if I don't stay exactly on the line, it's okay. It's okay. Because as long as it's curved, an elephant, you know, all elephants look a little different. Use my rotary cutter. You can do this with the scissors too. But I just do it with my rotary cutter because I'm here. That, remember, that little dot means where the tail goes. And I'll show you how to make a tail. That's going to come later. That's going to probably be in the next video when I teach you how to do your applique. So I've cut it all out. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's close enough. And you've got your seam line, which will go into the front body. Remember, the tail is here. And there you go. We have our finished piece. And it's not that bumpy. It's pretty good. So when you sew all the units together, you'll sew the body together, you'll sew the two front legs together, you'll sew the head and the ear together. And then once these four sections are sewn together, then we'll sew right sides of the back feet together. And on the paper piecing pattern, it shows you where you're going to be connecting these. So you just follow your directions. Like here, it gives you your seam allowance, which is really nice. And it shows you where to connect it. And then you'll sew your legs to here, these legs to here, and then you'll put the whole neck onto this piece. This will be together. This is right sides, like that. And I'll come back once I've sewn this all together. So I've sewn together the body, the head, and the legs. you want to go slow when you're going over this heavy seam because you don't want to break your needle. And what I'm going to do in here is I am going to trim out some of the mess that's in there. Trimming at an angle. Trimming at an angle, that's some of my old skills as a tailor when I learned how to do tailoring in my high school years. So when you trim at an angle, it helps to reduce the bulk. Don't cut into your seam, otherwise you'll end up with a big hole. So be very careful. And then the other thing that we'll be doing is pressing it open. And I'm just going to finger press it now, but I'll give it a good steam with my heavy iron. And this, it's hard to press this open, so I'm just going to press it flat and press it down. Some people will take like a wooden mallet and really break down the fiber, which that's the great thing about cotton and textiles, is they're very malleable. But that's just to show you what happens in there. See how nicely these two pieces came together? You want to make sure that you do a decent job at matching. Getting those points and those points. That's not quite perfect, but it's close enough. And this, we'll press it open, and then you'll tear off all the paper. And that's when you sit down, you relax, you get your tweezers, and you just do this very meditative process of tearing away all the paper. I tend not to use tweezers because I never seem to be able to find them. If you have tweezers at your disposal, go for it and use them. I just kind of dig my nail in. If you have nails, you don't mind doing that. And I also support the seam. So when you're pulling, you're pulling with your left hand, put your finger on with your right hand just to support the seam. See how I put my finger down and then I pull it? Put my finger down and then I pull it. So just take your time. Enjoy the process. And do that through the whole thing. So here's my elephant. It's all pieced and ready to be appliqued. Thanks for stopping by today. I hope you learned about how to piece the elephant and I, and you learned some more color tips. If you want some more basic information on paper piecing, go to my first video in Elephant and I. And if you want to learn how to do the applique, machine applique of these motifs onto the background, go to my third video, which is available now. The last thing I want to share with you today is that the same techniques and skills you're learning from these three videos can be applied to Whale and I, which is my brand new pattern that's featured in Ombre Quilt's new book, and you can go right into this pattern having confident skills if you watch these videos and are applying the same techniques to this. Thank you.